think this is one of the only books I've ever read in one sitting, and this book was just so beautifully written. I can fully acknowledge that this book is not well written. Hello, my name is Claire. I hope you're doing well. And today I'm going to be doing the book recommendation tag, which was started by Steph Bower. Definitely butchered that, but I'll put an image of her video here. And basically it's a bunch of questions about books I liked, books I didn't, and I'm going to answer all of them and hopefully give you guys some recommendations or some not recommendations. So the first question is a book you tell people is your favorite, and I have two for this one. So the first book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is a very recent favorite of mine. I read it in January and I absolutely loved it. It's part of the Grishaverse, so it's in the same world as Shadow and Bone, but Six of Crows is by far my favorite. Leigh Bardugo is an amazing fantasy writer anyway, but something about this book, I love the characters, I love the story, I love everything about it. I can definitely see why it's so popular. The characters are so interesting, their relationships are so complex. The story follows them planning a heist, which is just a really cool concept in general and something I'd never read in a fantasy series, so this is definitely up there on my favorite books. And then the second book that I usually will tell people is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I read the series I think about a year ago now, and I still think about it. I feel like the first book in the series is a really good fantasy book, even if you're not a big fantasy fan, because it's not like pages and pages of world building, and a lot happens in the first book. You follow the main character Feyre from her little cabin as a human, and then she accidentally kills a fae, and then a fae lord comes and takes her to his palace for punishment, and then she ends up going through all these trials. Like, it's a crazy ride. And then the rest of the series goes into like the politics and war and everything, typical fantasy book things. I just really thoroughly enjoyed this series. I love the romance in it, I love the characters. I think I read Throne of Glass first, and I think you can definitely see an improvement in Sarah J. Maas's writing from that series to this series. Generally, I will say one of those two books, which if you cannot tell, fantasy is probably my favorite genre. The second question is a book that is your guilty pleasure, and for this I said From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is a fantasy romance, like emphasis on the romance. I can fully acknowledge that this book is not well written necessarily, that the plot isn't like super thought out, that the romance is kind of toxic, but like something about these books was so addicting to me. It has enemies to lovers and then transitions into touch her and I'll kill you vibes, which I'm here for. I don't know what it was about these books, but I read the whole series and I will read whatever books come out after. I would definitely not say that these are like the best books I've ever read. So question 3 is a book that everyone loved that you didn't. I have, again, two for this one. One is The Perfect Marriage, which I don't know if everyone loved it because on Goodreads it does not have like best reviews, but I feel like I saw it all over BookTok a little while ago, and I just like, if you watch my last video, my reading wrap up, I literally couldn't finish this book. The writing style was just not for me. It made me laugh multiple times, and it wasn't supposed to make me laugh. It just, I could not get into it. And then the other book is the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi, I think is how you say it. I will preface this by saying that I read this book like 7-8 years ago, so maybe if I read it again now my thoughts would change, but also I feel like if I didn't like it when I was like 14, I'm not gonna like it now. I just found it really boring, if I remember, and I see like it has so much hype right now. It kind of makes me want to pick it up again and see, but I literally, like, I used to have the book and I donated it because I didn't like it. I wasn't gonna read the rest of the series. And then question number 4 is a book that you read the fastest, and again, I have two for this. I'll speed through it. First book is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I think this is one of the only books I've ever read in one sitting. Something about this book kept me so like on the edge of my seat. I would read so much more Colleen Hoover if she wrote books like that instead of books like It Ends With Us, because it was really captivating. I wanted to know what was gonna happen. It was spooky, and I like that it ends with like an open ending, so you can kind of decide for yourself what you think happened. And then the other book is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, which again I read very recently, but it yanked me out of a reading slump. I read it I think in 2 days, and it was just so cute. It's such a like pure YA romance. It'll give you butterflies in your stomach, and it has fake dating and high school prom, all that kind of stuff, and it's just like a very easy, fun read. So question number 5 is a book that deserves more hype, and the one that I chose for this one is Loveless by Alice Oseman. This book made me so emotional. The main character, Georgia, is a romantic and asexual, which is just something you don't really see represented represented in books or media anyway. This book focuses so strongly on the power of friendship and how love from your friends can be just as fulfilling, if not more fulfilling, than romantic love. This book really pulled at my heartstrings. I loved it so much. So I would definitely recommend reading it if you haven't. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. Following the Alice Oseman train, the next question is a book that's becoming a movie or TV show, and Heartstopper is already a TV show, but season 2 is coming out this year. This is one that I actually have in a physical copy. I believe season 2 will follow volume 3, which is this one where they go on the Paris trip, and I am so excited for it. It's gonna be so cute. This is like my favorite volume out of all of them because I just love the going on a school trip energy, no parents around, the friend group getting closer, having fun, lots of important conversations, and all really like lighthearted, happy vibes. So I cannot wait for the show. The next question is a book that you have reread the most, and this would also work for my book that's becoming a TV show, and that is another book I have in a physical copy. Literally any Percy Jackson book. Look how ancient this book looks. Like I have had this since birth. I have reread this series more times than I can count. Like this series, the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and then also the Heroes of Olympus series. I love them both so much. It's such a comfort series for me. It holds up every time. I'm really excited for the Percy Jackson TV show as well. I think it'll be really good. Something to make up for the absolute atrocity that was the movies. I probably reread the series like every couple of years. So the next question is a book from a genre that you don't typically read. And the book I chose for this was Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which is a memoir. And I read this in January, which is one of the first memoirs I've ever read. And it was so powerful. It was so well done. It like single-handedly made me want to read so many more memoirs. This is written from the survivor of the Stanford sexual assault case, and she basically documents her whole experience during and after the trial and how it impacted her and her family and her friends. And it was heart-wrenching, but it was so important and it was so well written, and I honestly think everyone should read this. Obviously, if you are going to read this, look up trigger warnings, but I think it's a really incredible book. The next question, which we are on question number 9, if you're keeping track, is a book that you think deserves all the hype it gets. And for this one, I said Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I know this one, people tend to either really love it or just like not feel that much for it, but I love this book so much. It is like my favorite romance book of all time. I love everything Emily Henry writes, but Book Lovers was my favorite book of hers. I love the characters. I love the banter. I loved that it was kind of a grumpy book. So it was like a powerful woman that was like, didn't have to give up her career for the man that she liked. It was kind of enemies to lovers, but in like a very realistic way with very realistic problems. I read this book also really fast, and I think it fully deserves all the hype that it gets. Question number 10 is a book that you usually recommend when someone asks you to give a recommendation, and the book that I will usually say is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I think this is a really good series to just get into reading because it's YA, so it's not like super intense, but it's a thriller and a mystery with hints of romance and humor in it, and I think it's a really easy series to fly through if you want to like start reading. So usually if someone asks and I don't know exactly what their taste would be, this is like my go-to book that I will tell people to read. It's one of the first books I read when I started getting back into reading, and I read the whole series in like a week. It's really well written. It has a really captivating story, and it's also like fairly short, so each book is only like 300 pages. The next question is a book that has your favorite characters, and I was trying to think of a book that I haven't said already, and I have to say Six of Crows. I'm in my Six of Crows phase right now. Like I'm watching the edits on TikTok and YouTube. Like that's how deep I am in the Six of Crows era right now. So I love these characters so much. I love the found family environment that they build. So right now I have to say Six of Crows. And then the next question is a book you wish you could live in. And for this one, I said either Every Summer After by Carly Fortune or The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther because both of these books had such like good summery vibes. Every Summer After is set in like the cottage country in Ontario, which is where I live, and I grew up going to my cottage in the summer, and it just like brought back such nostalgia and like good memories for me. So I would love to live at a cottage every summer with cute neighbors that I can hang out with. Or the summer broken rules is a family that is vacationing at Martha's Vineyard for a wedding, and they play this like giant game of assassin, which sounds so fun. Like, that's my dream. I want to play a giant game of assassin. It lasts for like a week, and the romance in it is so cute. So I feel like either of those books would be such a good time. So number 13 is a book you thought that you would hate, but you ended up loving. I also have a physical copy of this one, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I have this indigo like special edition version of it, which is so beautiful, by the way. Like, I borrowed this book from the library because I honestly was so certain I was not gonna like it. It just like didn't really appeal to me. I hadn't really read any just general fiction at that point, but it was getting so much hype that I was like, I have to read this book. And I think this is also one that I read in a day or two. Taylor Jenkins Reid is such a good storyteller. Every story she writes, even about the most mundane things, really just pull you in. These characters feel so real. I'm like, Evelyn Hugo could fully have been a movie star in our world, you know? I really enjoyed this book. I think I ended up giving it 4 or 5 stars, which I did not think that I was gonna like it. Question number 14 is a book that made you cry, and I said Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, which I read recently in a Reading Viral TikTok Books video. And this is another book that I wasn't sure I was gonna love because it's also like kind of just a general fiction book. It's about these 2 friends that meet when they're 11 years old, and it follows them through like the next 30 years of their lives as they make video games together and kind of become these super famous game designers. And this book was just so beautifully written. There's so many lines in this book that I want to go back and like highlight, and I desperately want a physical copy of this because 1, the cover is beautiful, and 2, I want to annotate it so bad. This book I did not expect to make me as emotional as it did. You get to learn so much about these characters, like the good and the bad, and there's like a couple different events throughout the story that just had me fully crying, and I was not prepared for that, but I really love this book. The last question number 15, is a book that you wish you could read for the first time. And obviously the first ones that come to mind are the books that are like my favorite books, which is Six of Crows or Court of Thorns and Roses, because both of those, like, I need a book to make me feel that way again. But because I've already said those just multiple times, I said Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is probably my favorite thriller that I've read. The plot twist at the end, I literally had to put the book down and like process what was happening because it shocked me so much, but it like makes so much sense, which is the best kind of twist where like you can't really guess it, but then once you read it, you can like go back and connect all the breadcrumbs that were leading up to this point. So I feel like that was just like a masterclass in thriller writing. I desperately would love to read it again without knowing what is gonna happen. So those are all the questions. Let me know your answers to any of these questions. I'm really curious. I love watching these videos. I think it's such a fun idea. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps me out a lot, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.